It is possible to shift left under FedRAMP without hassling your developers. I'm Darren Meyer, staff engineer with Endor Labs. Let me show you how we can help. Let's start with where we're at before we shift left. So I've scanned this project and I'm looking at its vulnerabilities. I have 16 vulnerabilities. Today I want to focus on the critical and high findings. These are the things that FedRAMP was going to require me to fix in 30 days. And I've got 8 here. And of course, since we're using Endor Labs, I know that I can focus down on things that are actually fixable, things that are in scope, and things that are not false positives, things that actually have some kind of potential path to exploitation. And when I do that, I'm down to 1 finding. And then I have a policy that's going to take that finding, those things that match that 30-day SLA rule, and put it into my ticketing system. So I'm in a pretty good spot already. I just have this 1 finding to deal with. I have all of the information that I need to prove the finding is real, understand how the dependency comes in, all of that information, know exactly what I need to do, and the upgrade I need to do to fix this issue in mchange. So that's great for me, except this is already in production. And so it's not very timely. It's now disruptive to me as well. I've got a ticket. I have to now plan this into my next sprint. I know I only have 30 days. It has to be tracked on the POM, so it's expensive for my AppSec team. I would like to get the same information to me when I'm making the change rather than after it ships to production. So to do that, I'm going to modify this policy. I'm actually going to clone this. I still want tickets for when it happens. And then I'm going to edit this one and change its behavior a little bit. So as you can see, it's got those same filters, critical and high severity, fixes available, function is either reachable or potentially reachable, and test codes being excluded. But instead of sending this notification to open the ticket, I'm going to ask to enforce it at a warn level, right? And I'm going to change the name of this so I can make these a little more descriptive. We're going to call this a CI alert. And let me get rid of this -1 at the end. It's ugly. And I also like to leave myself a little note to let me know that this is a CI targeted policy, entirely optional. And I go ahead and update that action policy. So now you can see I've got the 2, the one that does the notification and the one that alerts me in CI, right? So then when I'm in my CI environment, you can see I made this change here to downgrade commons text. And I happen to know that this version has a vulnerability, but I'm just testing something. And then when I do the pull request, it runs checks automatically. So you can see here that all the checks have passed. So the Endor Labs scan for SCA has passed and not found any blocking issues, but it did leave me a warning. This policy that I created, the CI alert policy, was violated, and it was violated for this dependency that I just added. You'll notice that mchange one that I had before doesn't show up. It's still in there, but it doesn't show up because it's not related to this change that I made. And I'm glad for this because I don't want to be told about things that some other developer did a year ago. That's already in the ticketing system, already in production for me to take care of. But I do want warnings about things that I just changed that might cause a problem. So now I know there's something I should fix here or I'm going to have a FedRAMP problem. But I'm not blocked for merging this. I can go ahead and merge and follow the process toward release here, but I can't any longer tell my security team I didn't know there was an issue. I do know and I have an opportunity to fix it before it goes, which is pretty great. Once I've done this for a while, though, I may want to actually block this from going into production unless I get an exception. And there's a very easy policy change that lets me do that. So I'm just going to edit the same policy, and I'm going to change the enforcement to break the build. Okay? Once that's in place, now that same warning that I had here, I'm going to go to a different pull request where I run with that policy in place. And you can see right immediately, I can't merge this, right? The SCA check failed, and it says required statuses have to pass before merging. So I can't go to production. If I want this to be fixed, I either need to get an exception or I need to fix the problem. Of course, once I have this in place, it's very frustrating to submit a PR and have your build failed. It happens, but I'd rather be able to check this before I submitted the pull request, which is why we've built things to be easy to integrate into an IDE. So you can see here's that same change I've made, and I am now in Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to add just a couple of tasks to my project that are designed to run Endor Labs in scan mode and give me information, right? So when I'm in here now, instead of making the change and just pushing it, I do the normal thing. I've made the change. I'm going to ask it to run a task, and I'm going to clean build with Maven. This is a normal development process that I would do to make sure everything builds and all my test runs before I were to submit a pull request. That's successful, so now I'm ready to commit my changes and push them. And before I do that, I can, at my choice, run a full scan with Endor Labs. Now this just takes 30 seconds or so. It's not a long process, but it does all the analysis locally on my machine that is going to match what happens in the CI environment, and it's going to tell me exactly what I need to know about what changes I've made and what vulnerabilities I have introduced. And depending on configuration, I can see all of them or some of them. As you can see, it's now popped up this list of issues that it has found. Just these few things. There were only one block policy was violated for this one thing. And I can see which one that was because I have these blocker items, right? So these are things that would block. Now this is everything, not just what I've changed, but I can see everything that blocks right in my IDE here. And I can actually go and move to the detailed findings right in Endor Labs, which do not affect any of your scans or reporting, right? These are not official scans. This is just providing an interface to the developer. And I can go look at all of the findings that were just raised by that scan and narrow them down the way that I want to, including finding these things in mchange like that are blockers, finding what the call paths are, and all of that additional information. This really gives me a tight integration right in my IDE before I ever push things to production, allowing me to be warned if something might be blocking before I go ahead and make a pull request for it. As you can see, it's very easy to give developers the information that they need right where they're working, rather than waiting for things to go into production.